this regulation does not have to be such that you violate other laws. So while you are required to secure the reserves, obviously all the other laws of the country needs to be obeyed. If there's a process to follow with regards to eviction, then that needs to be followed. The question will be, before that act become effective, if the need for eviction needs to be dealt with even proactively. So maybe it's a case of maybe there's a ball that has been dropped somewhere, but I think these regulatory tools needs to be complied with without violating any other law. I'm not going to go to specifics in terms of those processes for eviction, but the issue here is the railway reserves needs to be secured. Thank you.
You. Okay, I'm gonna move on. This question is from Tefo Khake. It says, who has the
The allocation of cost is a challenge. I think as an operator, if you own a network, you are responsible for the network to look after and secure the network. And it's unfortunate that the processes that has brought us this far are that there has been a system of not following process in terms of developments around the reserves. There are spatial planning requirements, I know, and there are municipal requirements with regards to providing for access across the network. So I think there has to be an engagement between the various spheres of government and the operator. Yes, I do acknowledge that there might have to be a sharing of costs, but I think the important thing is to initiate that engagement so that it does not get tossed to and fro. I know that it's not a very specific and direct response that would have been expected, but it's not very easy to say it is the responsibility of an operator, for example, to build a bridge. But the consultation, yes, it is expected that operators will continue to do awarenesses around their reserves with regards to safety and to engage those communities with regards to railway safety. So in any case, the people are not supposed to cross the railway network anyway. It must be at safe places and designated places. So if this is happening, if the contrary is happening, then that means there's a breach somewhere, and that means breach not in terms of the physical structure. In other words, there's a violation somewhere. But I think the expectation is that there's awareness sessions that are expected from operators to create awareness to the communities about the railway safety. And with regards to crossing the network, if now the access to the other side has been closed, then I think we need to go back a few steps and understand how did it come about that that situation ended up like that, and those engagements with the various spheres of governments that needs to take place, like your municipalities, your regional government, and obviously the RSR can also be called in to be part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. There's another question from Defokake, and it says, seemingly, the best solution to level crossing is building of bridges, level 6. Does the DOT have appetite to build the bridges? If government does not carry the cost, the railway industry will ultimately be expensive, and the overall objectives of moving freight from road to rail?
I'm very wary of general statements. Remember, we base or I expect that the building of a bridge will be on the basis of the risks associated with that crossing. I know of instances where the solution is not necessarily a building of a bridge. Solution in some instances were closing a crossing, and there were some instances where there was diversion of traffic or diversion of movement. So it's not just you don't paint everything in one brush. You look at each situation case by case. And with regards to the need for bridges, I think when you need to engage the DOT, I think it would be important to bring the evidence and to bring the assessments that you have done. Then you can engage the DOT. The good thing is that these are all state-owned entities, so this will be one entity looking at the whole thing, or looking at all the requirements. Yeah, therefore, that's not a very easy question, I mean, but I think we need to look at the various solutions. It's not just an issue of building bridges. Yes, once you go beyond level 6, then you need to consider the various options available as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next question is another one from Yab van der Merwe, and it says, practically, what remedies or sanction can the RSR apply for slow or non-compliance to preserving the rail reserve, given the legal challenges associated with the resettlement dilemma?
Can I please get the simpler versions as well?
I think what, oh, you got it.
Yeah, and I got the question, but Yape and therefore seems to be really going to those questions. You know those questions. Look, we can only use the regulatory tools that are at our disposal or that are available to us through the Act and regulations. And we do conduct interventions or initiatives jointly with the operators with regards to awareness and those kind of things. But the settlement dilemma, it's, yes, you're right. It's not just an RSR issue. I think it's a national issue. So I think it's important that you involve the applicable or the relevant stakeholders. Obviously, government cannot be removed from that equation. So yeah, we can only use as the RSR the regulatory tools that are at our disposal within the confines of the Act. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry, you were a bit delayed there. Okay. I see here there was a comment earlier from Mr. Freddie Kumari saying he had a comment. Freddie, would you like to give your comment? Yes, you are.
I just made around that issue. And I just wanted to clarify that it is, provision is made on these regulations, that reserve regulations, that operators will have some responsibilities with regards to, preventing to the railway reserve. Because we will be learning from Kenny in a minute or two that when coming to people struck by trains, we're losing maybe almost a life every single day, and that's not acceptable. And then we also have, issues around theft and vandalism that we will talk to. So obviously, the country is burning. We cannot allow the status quo to remain. Hence, these provisions on the regulations that also, requires operators, and it's very distinct that it says operators as opposed to do what whatever means that's possible within that means to prevent encroachment. That includes providing security. Walling is an issue that supposed to be, also considered, or fencing, and also removing removing. Obviously, they will have to work with other law enforcement agencies, but removing those people who are within the railway reserves. And there was other question that I wanted to comment on, but I think Reginald addressed it extensively, and I will stop there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Reggie. Um, Reggie, if you don't have any other comments on that one, I'll move to the next question. The next question comes from Jessica Hutchins, and it reads as follows. The issue of closing the rail reserve places significant emphasis on the operator. Many of the issues are socio-political and socio-economic. So what plans does the RSR have to address these systemic issues?
Okay, Chair, I believe we have addressed that when we were so yes, it's a systemic issue, but the specific requirements from the operator, I think, are very clear. But yes, it is important that as you deal with that issue as an operator, you do engage the relevant authorities for their various responsibilities. But I think the responsibility of the operators are clarified in the reserve. Yeah, I think yeah, we've dealt with this question, I think, more than once already.
Okay, thank you. The next question, also from Jessica Hutchins, says the matter of building bridges is not a real solution if there is no law enforcement. We know people will use the shortest, quickest route possible. So is a bridge really an answer? We need to prevent people from illegally crossing, which requires law enforcement. This again is a systemic issue, as we know the system also has its challenges. I don't know if you want to comment.
I think it's a similar issue. It's a systemic issue. I agree, but I think it cannot be just left unattended to because it's a systemic issue. I think you need to take an initiative as an operator and do engage the relevant people that you need to engage, including us as the RSR, so that it can be dealt with.
Thank you. The next question comes from Moses Pumo from Zambia Railways, and it says, is there any possibility of reducing the reserve trip land from 50 meters to about 30 meters in certain areas?
Yeah. Look, the railway reserves, I think, are not fixed throughout the country. I think there's different sections or sizes of these reserves according to various demarcations, according to the provisions that govern crossing of people's lands. And I think this requires a separate discussion because we do not deal with the extent of the reserve or how much it should be. I think we have not dealt with in this regulation, but I think it can be a separate discussion that can be had. And it's not just a discussion to be had with the RSR. Obviously, this will be with the applicable spheres of government or the applicable departments within government. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that one.
Thank you. And then the last question here comes from Faisal Williams, and it says, the elimination of vehicular level crossings should remain a priority. However, I believe that a more risk-based approach needs to be taken with pedestrian level crossings, especially with regards to formalizing informal crossings. The RSR was doing trials with new technology in this regard a while back. What was the results or outcome from this trial?
Okay, I'm not sure how Faisal is familiar with this, but we were exploring a pedestrian level crossing, which was not finalized, but I think we are going through a process of testing those scenarios Yes, I do agree that for pedestrians,
So as we proceed in this, but we also have to be mindful of the interpretation that was coming up with the figures. So I'd like to share the presentation with you. If I could just get back where I was, there we go. Then there we go. There's something called technology which tends to confuse us all the time. And if you could get it, I can't find my presentation. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, there it is. Then I go share. The presentation is there, so I go share. So when I share, I can't find the presentation. Go see. If you go there and go there.
Sure.
Right. Sometimes we get born and we lose touch of this technology as we move. But essentially, the presentation covers the statistics or the entries that were reported to the RSR in terms of occurrences and incidences that were reported to the RSR for a period of 2020-2021 reporting period. This is our agenda. We introduce the report, we then go through the statistics in terms of its highlights. I think we are all aware that you can always go back and read the report, but here, for the purpose of the presentation and time, we'll go to the highlights and then we go to the focus category analysis. Then the thorny part is from the previous presentation in terms of security analysis. Then we say what the RSR has done in terms of trying to intervene to do this. Then we have the discussions. Some people prefer to call it questions. I prefer to call it a dialogue. Um, Now, why do we do the state of safety report? Why bother? In terms of this, the report is essentially a report which provides an assessment of the safety of performance of railway operators within the Republic. Of course, we try to go as much as possible to understand and then a landscape of what's happening in the country. Secondly, is that it is a compliance issue in terms of what the RSR Act says, which we try to put the objectivity so that we can present to the world or any other interested party to understand what the railways looks like in the country. Then the Act further stipulates that we shall produce this as an annual report, but with emphasis on the safety of workers, the public, the environment, and associated with railway operations. So it's not a thing that you just wake up and decide to do. You do it for a purpose with an intention of actually even informing the public, not only in terms of what's happening in the rail, but to keep them abreast in terms of the level of safety within the operations, which the operators themselves tend to use and interpret. The term public is used generally, but actually it includes even us, because in the first place, before we become employees or employers or executives, we are a public. So we start from there. So we are informing ourselves, all of us, whether role players, stakeholder players, or any other party, we are part to this report. Now, Section 37 of the Act states that the operator must report the occurrences in a manner which the RSR prescribes. So in this instance, we know that the chief executive is a responsible party and accounting officer of the RSR. So we do this in terms of in a manner. The manner that we do is the RSR took a conscious decision that this will be a minimum. It's not necessary to say we can ask for many other things, but this is the minimum in terms of the categories that we use. So we can always expand on this later. But at the moment, the minimum that we have required for operators to do, and this is what we are presenting on. So we have occurrences and incidences. Some people tend to confuse the two. Occurrences are related to operational safety, and incidences are related to security-related incidents as entries. And these are done via NIMS as a primary source of inputting the data to the RSR, and then you can use the email system. Previously, we used to have a fax, so fax is a long gone issue. Then we still maintain the telephone concept, which has to be done through the contact center, where all your immediate reporting has to be